Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Since the dawn of the GAA in 1884, the telling of its stories have been just as important as the sports. Through the years, heroes and matches have been immortalised, inspiring generation after generation. But some of its most important stories have also gotten lost or turned into legend. In this series, we will explore some of the GAA's most fascinating forgotten tales, separating rumour from reality, myth from the truth that is often more amazing than the fiction. I'm Michael Foley.
And I'm Ciaran O'Hara.
So join us for Over the Bar, exploring the histories of the GAA. Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Over the Bar, our GAA history podcast. Ciaran, it's that time of the month again. It's Jersey episode time. Now, I have a feeling, I know we've only done 3 of these so far, but I do have a feeling that this could be one of our most memorable ones.
Offaly, man. Offaly. They are just the gift that keeps on giving.
They really are. They really, really are. Now, I've been very lucky because, I'd like to say that we just come on and just start talking like this and there's no conversations beforehand and it's just that good straight away that we don't have to. But I have had some sneak peeks about what's coming up here. And for anybody who's going, Offaly jersey, yeah, it's nice, green, white and yellow, and even their chain strips are ridiculously funky. But do I really want to know about where it came from? Yes, you do. This is about a jersey, Ciaran, but that's only the hook for a whole other story, right?
Yeah, and I look, before we get into it, the first thing I want to say is, and this is something that seems to happen a lot, we bury ourselves down in the Irish newspaper archive.
Yes.
And a lot of the time we're dealing with periods where, a local newspaper was 8 pages. So if I give the example of the one I've used most as a source for this, which was the Tullamore and Kings County Independent, later to be the Offaly Independent. Mm-hmm. The front page is just ads. There is another section which will just be just ads. There'll be an entire page for Westmeath. An entire page for national news. And then you're dealing with 3 or 4 pages where it's rare to find more than half a paragraph on certain things.
Okay.
And so often with all of these things, it's what's not written that becomes the greatest fixation. But I want to tell you where we started with this because I had no influence over this. You put out one of your polls again.
Yes. And actually, it was a pretty, it was Offaly versus Antrim, repeated in 1989 All-Ireland hurling semi-final. But there was no surprise win for Antrim this time. Offaly skated away. The green, white and yellow, Ciaran. It is a beautiful thing.
Ah, yeah, they've had some absolutely chronically good jerseys down the years.
Chronically good is the word.
maybe we'll come back to some of that towards the end. But the starting point for this very often is a Google search. So my first Google search, I'm putting in history of the Offaly County jersey.
Yeah, keep it simple. How fast can I get this done?
And I found what I'm assuming is an Offaly blog, evolly.com. And there's a discussion forum where they're saying, anyone know? And there's an article from the 1970s from the newspapers, which implies a story which I've seen in other publications as well, that these were the colours of the Tullamore Club, who were very successful, and some point in the 1920s gave the county permission to adopt their colours, and they changed to blue, as we now know Tullamore to be.
Yeah. Blue. And a familiar story, Ciaran. The most successful club in a county giving over their jersey to be the registered county colours. Yeah, makes fairly reasonable sense to me.
Yeah, but then as I went deeper into it, you find other mythos around it. So, that the jerseys had been protected by a player from Tullamore from raids by the Black and Tans.
Oh, I'm sure that happened. I'm certain that happened.
Or the British, or the RIC, by a player named Molyneux. And you're kind of going, okay, right, this sounds a little more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go in the right direction.
But my Lord, I couldn't have imagined the rabbit hole this would take me down.
You've just come up, and I'd say rabbit hole. You've still got, flecks of dirt on your forehead there. You're looking quite scruffy, actually. You've gone deep for this one.
I have. Now, I'm going to hold up a book for you, Michael, and you may not understand yet why it's important. But if you could inform the readers what that is.
It's the 1916 Rebellion Handbook, which sounds to me like something that Owen MacNeil and Padraig Pearse might have been handing out around March 1916. 1916 Rebellion Handbook, introduction by Declan Kyberd, and the front cover is of a decapitated GPO.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it.
Thank you.
Now, what I was not expecting to find, I picked up the handbook because I wanted to get a sense of Ireland in the period. What I didn't expect to find was on page 1 that there would be reference to an incident called the Tullamore Incident, and that this was actually the beginning of the Rising. Now, the Tullamore Incident occurred like a month before the Easter Rising, and it arises out of an incident at a GAA game in Tullamore.
Go on.
I think it best if I read the passage on the affray at Tullamore.
Very nice. Would you like to adopt an accent for it, or are you just going to read it straight?
I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to, this isn't the rest is history.
Just in case people get confused that he's trying to do an Offaly accent or something.
So, the contention here is that there's a couple of incidents that precede the Rising. One of which is their Rising. One of which is, a mobilisation by the volunteers for St. Patrick's Day. Okay?
Okay.
But it says, while the proceedings in Dublin on St. Patrick's Day were still a matter of public comment, a new development occurred at Tullamore on Monday evening, the 20th of March. Ill feeling, which had been smouldering in the town for some time against the Sinn Féin volunteers, was manifested at a hurling match in aid of the Wolfe Tone Memorial on Sunday, the 19th of March, when a spectator attempted to remove a flag from one of the Sinn Féiners, who it was alleged retaliated by drawing a revolver.
Ooh.
The feeling was accentuated the following morning, Monday 20th, at Tullamore railway station, where a number of women were taking leave of their husbands who are serving in the Leinster Regiment. A body of Sinn Féin volunteers who appeared on the platform were then the object of a hostile demonstration. This by the wives of servicemen.
Oof. It's very tense.
It's tense.
It is. I'm feeling it. I don't know about anybody else.
These incidents culminated in a shooting affray in the Sinn Féin Hall in William Street the same evening. A number of children carrying a Union Jack sang songs in front of the hall. The crowd soon swelled, and amid the booing and cheering, stone throwing began, and the windows of the hall were smashed. The volunteers inside retaliated by firing revolvers, and a large force of police proceeded to search the hall for arms. Naturally enough, if you've heard this, bullets being fired.
They're firing at the kids and the lads out on the street. Let's have a look.
A general melee then took place. Revolvers were fired at the police and several of them injured. Ultimately, several men were arrested and charged next morning with having fired at and attacked with intent to murder County Inspector Crane, District Inspector Fitzgerald, Head Constable Stewart and Sergeant Ahern. Subsequently, another batch of volunteers were arrested and remands were granted several times as Sergeant Ahern was unable to appear, having been seriously injured and conveyed to Stephen's Hospital.
Recap,
What we
Ciaran.
know from that.
What do we got here? What do we got?
We've got a town which is, hence, well, up to now, has been thought to be quiet. But what we've got is a large presence within the town of servicemen, of their families who are dependent on them, who are involved in the First World War. We also have a burgeoning volunteer corps, Sinn Féin, cultural movement within the town, many of whom are involved in the GAA. But equally, up until the 1916 Rising, most of those involved in the GAA are actually supporters of the Irish Parliamentary Party. They're in favour of Home Rule. So we've got diverse political opinions within the town of Tullamore, and this is a microcosm of the rest of the country.
Absolutely. That's what I'm hearing. Is this now is like a little petri dish with all the key elements, all the key political elements that are kind of fomenting around the country, all thrown in on top of each other in a Midlands town.
These are incidents that aren't occurring elsewhere in the country. So what occurs within the GAA in the town is that there's a split.
Of course.
The old Neil Tobin joke, like first thing on the agenda, the split. But there is a split in the town. And the volunteers in the town actually split from Tullamore and set up their own club, the Volunteers Club.
Okay.
So what we're learning about a year later is that there are attempts to join the two clubs back together. And that's what I first discovered, is that in 1917, there's an AGM for Tullamore branch of the GA. They're not even calling it the club, where they're just all saying, we've had a bad year, there's been too much division. Now, there's an economic necessity to this. This is at a time when you had to beg of a landowner for the use of land to host games. But where Tullamore is different, they have a lease on a property at £20 a year. So if there is division within the ranks, they are not going to meet the costs of that lease. And there are disputes over the course of late 1916 arising about the volunteers wanting to hold other activity.
Oh, I wonder what that could be.
With their associated pipe band.
Bake sale.
Or, etc. And they want to host Gaelic tournaments. But they're not getting access from the trustees.
Right.
So this is driving an even bigger wedge between them. So
hang on now. So just 1 second, right? So you've got the Tullamore branch of the GA and you've got the Tullamore Volunteers. Did the Tullamore Volunteers actually play matches and stuff? Do we know?
They seem to have played some.
And did they both use the same ground?
Yes.
Okay.
When permission was granted.
Right.
So what we're seeing is people of opposite political persuasions. We're seeing hardliners, moderates, trying to deal with the split within a small playing community where they have to maintain this headquarters that they have, which is not O'Connor Park, by the way. It's a lease on a field about a mile outside of Tullamore. And you've got now what happens in the aftermath of the executions from the Rising.
Right.
Which is that sentiment changes nationally. Now we have nationalism on the rise, moderation receding, but they still feel the only way we're going to resolve this is if we bring everyone back under one umbrella in Tullamore. And what actually happens in 1916 is Tullamore don't play a championship match, which means that they are at risk of being suspended the following year.
Yes, they have to do. They have to do something, or else they won't be. Because I presume it's the same as the rule has been. Now they've made slight tweaks to it recently, but generally, to be a club, you have to be playing championship matches.
Yeah, like so if I give you an example, on Sunday, April 26th, they have the North Offaly AGM or convention. And there's an issue of teams not showing up and whether they should be suspended, but they're talking about Tullamore.
Right.
And they're saying it's very unfair on venues when teams don't show up. And I mean, when you go through these newspapers, some of the things that come up, like I found one match where Tullamore showed up and their opponents wouldn't play them in a hurling match because the grass was too long. And then the next team, two teams that are supposed to play, decide it's too long too. And then, you've got people that have paid in for a triple header who aren't happy because only one game is going ahead.
And they're dealing with these divas who won't play on a football pitch, basically.
Basically, that's what's going on. Yeah.
Come on.
Now, no, well, it's not a football pitch. It's dependent on who, and I think it was in Clara. Whoever in Clara had provided the field for the day. But in any event, that's the kind of thing that's going on. So that's why there's a necessity for Tullamore to come back together. But you have two entrenched positions. Now, about a year after the Tullamore incident, and I should say of the 12 volunteers, they don't end up being convicted. Some of them end up on the lam. A guy called Seamus O'Brennan, who's very close to De Valera later and actually participates in the Rising in Dublin. Because Ahern, the policeman that they've injured, ends up coming back to the town. He retires. He goes working on lorries, I think, and he falls off a lorry and is killed before they can hear from him.
Oh, dear.
All those cases are dismissed. And there's arguments about whether they should have been heard in a court-martial when they clearly were meant to be civil. But everybody in Tullamore knows who is involved in the various movements. And about a year after the Tullamore incident, in the Foresters' Hall, there is a concert. Music, recitations of a patriotic nature for St. Patrick's weekend.
A good recitation.
There's a 12-year-old singer that they've brought in for the occasion. They've decked her out in white, green, and yellow.
Tremendous. A young Shirley Temple type, I'd imagine, with the ringlets and all the rest of it.
I'm sure. In any event, she recites a poem entitled Vengeance about the 1916 Rising.
Did she write it herself?
I don't get the sense that she did. I must find out who wrote Vengeance.
Angry 12-year-old.
In the papers, what you'll find afterwards is reference to what a lovely event it is. And
oh, yes.
Her name was Lena McGinley.
Well done, Lena.
And as I say, she's a 12-year-old. This is like having the Billy Barry kids come in to recite a poem. Okay?
Fantastic. Sounds amazing.
And
amazing actually might be pushing it, but anyway.
Well, the purpose of the fundraiser is to fund the pipe band.
Okay, very good.
Now, we can argue about whether that's actually where the funds go. But in any event, as I say, in the newspapers afterwards, it's all passed off as a perfect St. Patrick's Day weekend. However, a number of weeks later, there is a hearing. And the man who was at the door, a guy by the name of James O'Connor or James Connor, depending on where you see his name in print, he's arrested for promoting sedition because he's been collecting the money at the door. And he is the man who took the money from the policeman who went in to watch and take notes with two other colleagues.
Very good. Okay. Undercover.
And another man, E.J. O'Carroll, is also arrested. He's performing, I gather he introduced
young Shirley Temple.
Yes. In any event, they are arrested under the Defence of the Realm Act, which means that they're promoting sedition.
Sedition is a serious charge, Ciaran. This is, this can, at a time of kind of, are we still under martial law in 1917? I'm not sure, but it's not, this is going to be a very serious matter.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned James O'Connor, whatever he is going to be.
About three different versions of his name now.
He is the president of the Tullamore Volunteers GA club.
Good man, James.
And he is also the quartermaster of the Offaly Volunteers. So we can see what's happening here. They know these guys are involved. There's a room full of people involved. Let's pick the two we want.
Okay, I got you.
And get them on Defence of the Realm Act.
I just want to pause here just to get ourselves sort of, just to catch up on where we are. So we've got Tullamore GA Club, we've got Tullamore Volunteers. The Tullamore Volunteer GA chairman has just been arrested for sedition, for taking money on the door for a kind of a fundraiser event where
promoting sedition, yeah.
Promoting sedition. Shirley Temple's inside, reciting a poem called Vengeance that I presume it wasn't about the perils of growing up. It was something else. So I'm wondering now, where does the Offaly jersey come into all of this?
Now, I hope you're still with us, listeners.
It's been fascinating. It has been fascinating, but I am conscious that we're here about a jersey.
I mentioned that you don't see very long paragraphs in the newspapers of the time, but there are 3 full columns on this hearing for Jim Connor and EJ O'Carroll. And some of it's quite amusing. We may pop it up in the notes. But in any event, they are told that they would be fined £20 in bail, that they're to be on good behaviour and away with you. And they decline. So they are imprisoned in Mountjoy because they're refusing to keep the peace. That's one of the conditions.
Right. Now, they're going to go out and raise hell.
So that's on Saturday, the 28th of April. On the 29th of April, there is a great gathering in Birr. That's what's in the newspaper. Note that it is now Birr as opposed to Parsonstown when we last encountered.
Excellent. Way back with the first All-Ireland final. Yeah.
And it is a challenge match between Offaly and Tipperary.
Very good.
So the day after the two boys have been sent away.
Love GEA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
The teams are led in through the town of Birr by the Clonaslee pipe band. They take to the field holding hands, no less.
Very nice. That, you know what that reminds me of actually is the only time I've ever seen that, I think, is it the Brazilian football team hold hands as they're walking into a stadium? They certainly did at one stage in their lives back in the 90s.
It doesn't specify whether it's, holding the hands of their teammates or of their opponents.
Or each other.
It does leave a lot to the imagination. But in any event, the other notable thing that occurred, now this was a Birr Gaelic tournament which was organised for the benefit of local GA clubs in Birr. But it says, not in the 1920s, but in 1917, that Offaly were wearing their new green, white and gold jerseys as they marched to the centre of the field.
And just to remind people, of course, that the kind of standard story that's told about the Offaly jerseys happens some years later, right? It's the Tullamore donating their jerseys in the 1920s. So you're pushing this back some years, back to 1917.
Yes, and I'm assuming, given that the Volunteers Club had been founded in 1916 and that they're so fond of the Sinn Féin colours of green, white and yellow, which is what our young Shirley Temple had been accused of wearing, Sinn Féin colours in the concert, that the jerseys in question are those of the Volunteers Club, and that in solidarity with the imprisonment of their president, those colours are worn by Offaly for the first time against Tipperary in a challenge match in Burr. Now. So it took a while to get there, but that is the first time that Offaly wear the colours. Now,
Okay. This is totally new now, Ciaran. This is kind of a new take on an old story.
and if there's anyone out there that can argue a different case, please get in touch, because we are working between the lines of the news reports here. On the same page as the match report is an article that says that the Tullamore GA branch had met the previous Tuesday, the 24th, for their AGM to discuss harmony and everybody coming back together.
Everyone coming back. Lovely.
Amazing. Like just a few days after Jim Connor and EJ O'Carroll are in prison in Mountjoy, we can have an AGM to discuss everybody getting back together.
Hang on. I've heard this tone of voice out of you before. This is usually where you produce a conspiracy theory of some sort. What are you trying to say? What are you really trying to say here?
Well, let's face it, Jim is in no position to attend.
So you think they might just be removing, and you think they're removing potentially a dissenting voice in the room when it comes to bringing the band back together again? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm going to quote the secretary, John Condren, in his secretary's report to the meeting. Fellow Gaels, I request to report that the past year was not a very good one in the interests of our national pastime. The association suffered and is likely to suffer for some time owing to the effects of the war and various causes arising therefrom. But we had in Tullamore a further difficulty, viz. Dissension in our ranks. To make matters worse, while the majority of the clubs have no liabilities, we have to pay a heavy rent. We are in possession of one of the finest and best Gaelic grounds in Ireland, and it would be a rather unfortunate thing if, owing to personal bickerings or other causes, this field should be lost.
So effectively, lads, we've got bills to pay. How long are we going to stay apart? Let's get back together. Let's start paying our dues, paying our bills, and let's get on with this thing. And Tullamore volunteers, I mean, what are you going to do with those jerseys?
Well, not quite there yet.
Okay.
But in any event, he had invited members of the volunteers to attend in anticipation of them having this discussion. But they're seeing through the ruse. They're going, why are you calling this meeting while our president is in jail? Can we defer this meeting for 3 weeks until he's out, and then we'll sort it all out? And they're pushing back, going, no, but we have a championship match coming up against Edenderry that we have to play. We have to play next week. We need to select a team now from Tullamore to play this game. One team from Tullamore. So I think they are trying to overcommit everybody before Jim Connor comes out and says, hold on a minute, I didn't agree to any of this.
They're steamrolling this through is what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're taking advantage of the entire situation by the sound of things.
Yeah, that's pretty much what appears to be going on. Now, in any event, we end up with a bigger fiasco. So they don't take the field against Edenderry. They're kind of arguing that Edenderry should understand Jim Connor's in prison. You know?
Yes.
And that leads to the next North Board meeting, discussions about why didn't they show up. But in any event, we do get over the next few months to Jim Connor arriving at a meeting with a delegation of 5 officers and a proposal that the other side put 5 forward and that they name trustees for the ground. And we do get peace and harmony, and Tullamore comes back together again. Now, up until this point, Tullamore have worn, according to the sources I've found, green and red jerseys.
Okay.
For a time, they were, in the 20s, they were green jerseys before they become the blue jerseys. And the question then arises, what happened to this other set? So I'm assuming that at this point, there's a spare set of green, white, and yellow jerseys, which the county are able to avail of. and that is how Offaly came to wear those colours. As I say, have no solid proof. I've checked convention meeting notes, minutes. I can't find any reference to Tullamore giving permission. It's perfectly plausible that happened in a conversation. Oh, you go ahead. But over time, what comes down through history is this myth around the jerseys being hidden from authorities. And I'd say that's perfectly plausible. We've seen a case of how Jim Connor was targeted by the RIC for being at the door of an event. It's entirely plausible that if he's known to be involved in the volunteers who had caused the injury of a police officer the previous year, and that he's also involved in other organisations around the town, like Sinn Féin. He's a coach builder. He's involved in the transport union in the town. You know, he's seen as an agitator. It's perfectly plausible that they were trying to. But what comes down over time is this story that Tullamore gave permission, and they clearly did.
At some point, because they gave these jerseys. But what we're saying is that the original green, white, and yellow jerseys were worn by the Tullamore Volunteer GA breakaway in the 1910s.
Specifically in 1916. They don't appear to have existed for any longer than 1 year.
Excuse me. Yeah, exactly. So in 1916 and then in 1917, when Tip played Offaly in the challenge game, as you say, with Jim Connors in jail, that these green, white and yellow jerseys were given to Offaly to play this one-off challenge game. We don't know. There is no reference to the green, white and yellow being worn, between, say, 1917 and the mid-20s then, is there?
There's, like, I've gone through match reports and it doesn't say what either team is.
It doesn't say.
Colour.
Yeah,
it's the column inches that are available to us, the lack of photographic evidence, all of these things. If there are people out there that can provide us with additional information, it would be great to know. What we do know with certainty, because a friend of the podcast sent us a list, and you might fill people in there.
Thank you, Dennis Hurley, intrepid Evening Echo sports journalist and jersey aficionado, who sent in a list of jerseys from a GA annual, I think, wasn't it, Ciaran, from about 1937?
Which significantly closed the window of research for me, so thanks for that, Dennis.
But it's fascinating, actually, and this is something we can come back to as we go through these jersey episodes. The number of jerseys that we're familiar with now that weren't settled by 1937, you know, I mean, you still had, I think it was Derry jumped out to me wearing black and white. I don't know, was it stripes or hoops? But anyway, we're wearing black and white in the mid-30s. So it's a lot of that. Loads of sashes going around the place as well. But we'll come to all those as time goes on. But
what we know with certainty is that by the time the National League start, Offaly are wearing these colours.
In the mid-20s.
Yeah. We know with certainty that they wore them for this game. The assumption I'm making is the coincidence of it occurring on the same weekend that Jim Connor is in prison. That it is some form of protest, like we see in subsequent generations, where we see Kerry players protesting about interned members of their squad, etc. But that's what I believe is the case here, is that they adopt these colours in solidarity with the president of a club who has been imprisoned in Mountjoy. Now, it does give way to some of the best jerseys ever.
They have an amazing array of funky kits over the years. I don't think there's any county in the country that have nailed it so frequently as Offaly. I mean, the green, white and yellow in the first place it just looks beautiful. Especially, I saw some footage recently of the Offaly hurlers in the 80s, and that old, you know, the big green, white, yellow bands, amazing looking. But like, Ciaran, some of the change strips, unbelievable.
The white with the two stripes, which almost appears like three stripes at a time when Kerry were trying to wear them and couldn't against them.
Fantastic. This is the 1980 All-Ireland football semi-final where so it's an all-white strip with a green, as you say, and a yellow vertical stripe down one side. I mean, You'd wear that in a nightclub now, if nightclubs existed.
I'm sure they do. I haven't heard of or seen any in a while. But
They're a dying breed, I tell you. So you've got that one, and of course, then what my personal favourite of all time, which is the Offaly chain strip, which they wore in '82, but they've worn it lots of times since, which is the white jersey with the green and yellow stripes on the shoulders. Just beautiful. Like, I mean, it's just, these are works of art. Used to compromise rules, wasn't that right, Ciaran? That was kind of like the Ireland jersey as well.
Yeah.
So these things are, I mean, their legacy as far as jerseys go, I don't think anyway, certainly in my opinion, that there is a county that can lay claim to so many gorgeous jerseys.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Now,
Really
the other thing
beautiful.
that came up while I was researching this is other clubs in Offaly that might have had the same kit,
Oh, yeah.
but had subsequently changed. But as I say, I wasn't able to find any evidence of that, limited as the evidence is. In the aftermath of this, like I should have said, like that, I mentioned the North Board meetings. Like the secretary was one of the people involved in the Tullamore incident.
Okay.
Like they're
just
all
intertwined. The whole thing is intertwined.
The whole thing is intertwined in a way that you possibly wouldn't have expected. I mean, in the aftermath, Jim Connor stands in the local elections. I think there's local elections in 1919 or 1920, and Sinn Féin sweep the boards, and he's one of the people that's elected to the Tullamore Town Council or District Council. There is an incident. The police officer who had gone into the Foresters' Hall and testified against Messrs. Connor and O'Carroll is shot dead outside of his home in 1920. Two local men are later revealed in military records, pension records, etc., to have carried it out. And in the aftermath, there are reprisals. Now, his execution is in reprisal for Terence McSweeney. And he, ironically enough, he himself was from Cork. He's a policeman by the name of Cronin. And in the reprisals, the Foresters' Hall is burned to the ground. Now, people probably wouldn't understand what are Foresters?
It's kind of ironic that it, got burned down a fire.
Yeah, well, I mean, Foresters was like I suppose like it's common man's Freemasons of the time. There were branches of it all over the country. They had these halls, but like the hall had a cinema, it had a theatre, it had meeting rooms. It was clearly used for Sinn Féin activities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's burned down, and afterwards, when it's rebuilt, Jim Connor ends up setting up a cooperative there and a bakery, and he's involved very much in the town going ahead for years afterwards. But it is news to me that some of the first shots fired in earnest in the year of the Rising were in Tullamore.
And in a very kind of a tangled way, I suppose, we can draw some bit of a thread from those four shots all the way to the Offaly jersey. Eventually. I, for one, I tell your version, your theory sounds.
You're buying my
plausible to me.
thesis?
I do. No, I do. I actually do. And not just. I mean, if I didn't, I'd push back on it. But it makes sense, as you say, in a lot of these things, particularly with these jersey stories. Actually, a lot of what has actually happened is between the lines or on the margins. You have to sort of start joining dots a little bit here and there, because funny enough, what colour we're going to play in wasn't a big topic at the time. It became a big topic many years later when the jerseys became a tradition. So I think you're after joining some very interesting dots together, and I think you've created a new picture in terms of the origin story of the Offaly jersey that I think and I hope that people, for a start in Offaly, start to examine it and have a look and see, well, did our jersey, it does have a Tullamore connection, but perhaps it's the Tullamore volunteers, and that those jerseys were used once, then put away, and then exhumed again at some point later on for the use of the Offaly team, and what great use they've got ever since. Ciaran, that was fantastic. Like that, as I said, I think that's one of the jersey episodes that we're going to recall. We're going to come back to that one again.
Mick, we have a treat for our Carja Club members this week.
Oh yeah.
And I just want to say, if you haven't yet joined the Carja Club, do. We now have 25, 26 exclusive episodes up there for
something
our members.
Like that. Maybe more. There might be more.
But this one is a dinger. You're going to tell us the story of the All-Stars playing in the Toronto Sky Dome.
I know. And I know, like, the Toronto Stars are going to what? And even if they do remember it from the early 90s, they'll be going, why? But it's the story of money, hurling on a kind of like a car park, slitters bouncing high, toilet rolls stretching to the moon, Ciaran. It's mad. It's mad. And all over and kind of just floating above all of this is the idea of, well, what do we want a new Croke Park to look like, and what can we take from the Sky Dome? And maybe going to Canada is what we should be doing with the All-Stars every St. Patrick's Day. So if you want to find out how that went, subscribe. Come join our Carja Club for less than the price of a match program, for God's sake, with the amount you're getting for it. We're there. We're going there right now. But Ciaran, first of all, say thank you again for a really, really fantastic episode there. Like, it's opened up a whole new angle on the Offaly jersey that I don't think anybody possibly was aware of before. So thank you for that. To everybody else, please do your thing. Rate this episode, share it. If you know anybody out there you think might be interested in these kind of stories, let them know that we're here. Review, leave comments. Just get in touch with us, because we are open for business. As Ciaran said, these stories don't just get told and that's it. We are here to evolve them. We're here to add to them. We're here to correct them if needs be. We're ready to go. And as I say, come back for the Sky Dome episode, because that's where we're going now, Ciaran. Off to Canada, 1990.
Woo, here we go.
It's going to be great.